Hey, I'm Adam Armstrong from the New Alpha, and in this video I want to answer the question, does sitting ruin your masculinity? So does sitting down ruin your masculinity? And the answer to that question is, it can. And I'm being deadly serious when I say it can. Sitting really can ruin your masculinity. In this video, I'm going to explain why sitting can ruin your masculinity, and I'm going to talk to you about what you should do if your lifestyle involves a lot of sitting, because let's face it, in the 21st century, most people in the Western world sit down for hours and hours every day. They sit down when they're eating their breakfast, they sit down when they're eating their lunch, they sit down when they're eating their dinner, they sit down in the evenings when they're watching TV and chilling out. And a lot of people, like, a huge percent, I don't know what percent, but many people, including myself, sit down when we're at work, whether it's some sort of office job or even in a factory, or if you work like I work, which is from my office at home, but I'm sat in front of a computer all day. We all do a lot of sitting. And you might think that sitting sounds like a harmless thing, because at the end of the day, maybe after a hard day's work, the first thing you often want to do when you come in through the front door is just sort of sit down on the sofa and relax. So it doesn't seem like a bad thing, but I'm telling you, sitting can completely ruin your masculinity. And studies have shown that sitting's really bad for your health. There's all these studies coming out that have actually shown like a link between the more you sit, the sooner you're likely to die, all other things being equal. So sitting is no joke. But the reality is that, if we were talking about something else, like let's say we said that fizzy drinks were bad for your health, I might say, well, just don't drink fizzy drinks. It's easy. But I can't really tell you not to sit down, because we live in a world where you have to sit down. Like, I might, if I was being really good about this, maybe I could say to myself, well, I should have a desk where I stand up and type so that I don't have to sit down. But I kind of like sitting down when I'm typing at work, so sitting's a part of my life. The question is, why is it a problem, and how do you make sure that, how do you overcome those problems? So the reason why sitting is a problem, and I'm not going to tell you every reason why, and I don't think I know every reason why, but I know enough to make you realise it's a problem, is that when you sit down, certain muscles become lengthened over time, they become too long, and certain muscles become shortened. So if you imagine what it's like when you're sat on a chair, think about your hamstrings, which are the muscles on the back of your legs, the back of your thighs. Your hamstrings become short, your quads, the muscles on the front of your thighs, become long. What's bad about that? Well, it leads to knee problems. Your hips tend to become very tight when you do a lot of sitting, so your hips become tight. The hips are designed to be very mobile, but most people who sit all day and don't do anything about that fact end up with tight hips. And what's bad about tight hips? Well, you end up with bad backs. And if you look at statistics, the statistics show that something like 80 to 90% of American adults experience at least one serious bout of back pain during their lives. And some people have back pain and it just becomes a way of life. They never get rid of it. So it's bad for your, bad for the muscles of your thighs, bad for the muscles of your hips and your hip joints, bad for your lower back, bad for your knees. But it's not just bad for your lower body. It's bad for your upper body too, because most people who sit down, and I'm sometimes guilty of this too, but I get away with it because I do so much to undo the effects of sitting that I'll talk to you about soon. But most people who sit down a lot don't have the discipline to sit and, write or type at their desk or be on the phone with good posture. Then nobody sits at their desk like this for hours on end. Most people end up slouching in some way. Like, I know when I'm typing, like let's say I'm writing a new report on something, I often find that when I'm really in the zone and I'm typing and everything's flowing and my mind is completely focused on this content that's in my brain that I want to get onto the screen in front of me, I tend to find I start to slouch. Like, my backside's not flush against the back of the chair, it goes forwards, and I get a bit like this and I'm typing like this, like a nerd. But I end up with really good content at the end of it. But I notice I do that and I try and stop myself doing it, but I still do it. And most people who work, let's say in a desk job, they slouch. The shoulders come forwards, the chest goes in. So let's look at what's happening there. If you have this kind of posture when you sat down, the chest muscles over time become too tight. The muscles of your back are going to become too lengthened. And that causes all sorts of problems. One thing it is likely to lead to is shoulder problems, because you've got muscles here pulling shoulders forwards out of alignment. Another thing is it's going to disrupt your breathing, because you're like this, so you can't breathe deeply, you'll breathe more shallow, which leads to more stress and anxiety and so on. And the other big one is like neck problems. Like, a lot of people have like tension headaches, not something I've ever suffered from, but a lot of people have these tension headaches and like just pain in their like shoulders and neck. And oftentimes it's because when they're sat down, they have this kind of a posture, like a chicken posture, the head's forwards, as opposed to being over the top of the shoulders. It becomes like this. And then they start to stand and walk like this all day long. It's not good. So you've got many problems associated with sitting down, relating to both muscles becoming too short or too long, and like overall postural problems, and joint pain, whether it's knees, lower back, shoulders, neck, whatever. Now you might say, well, what's that got to do with masculinity? Well, a man needs to have good posture. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are at other things, how many other masculine traits you have. If you have bad posture, you are not maximizing your masculinity. You're not presenting yourself in a way that other men are going to give you respect for and women are going to be attracted to. Other men are going to respect you, even if it's only silently, if you have masculine posture. And women are going to be attracted to you, all other things being equal, if you have masculine posture. Where, let's say masculine posture, roughly speaking, is like your stomach's in, your chest's out, your shoulders are back and down, your head is aligned over your shoulders as opposed to being forwards. That's attractive to women. Other men take note of you. Even if they don't verbalize it, they know, wow, that's a man, that's a man, that's a king among men even. Now, I'll point some interesting things out about like postural problems that come from sitting. I said earlier that if you sit a lot, your hips will become tight. Now, if your hips become tight, it's going to affect circulation down there to your groin area. If you have problems with circulation down there to your groin area, you are sooner or later likely going to experience erectile problems. You're not going to be able to get it up. And if that's not going to have a negative impact on your masculinity, then I don't know what is. So if your hips get tight, the circulation gets cut off down there, you're going to experience erectile problems. And if you want to sort of proof that that's true, consider how pharmaceutical drugs work to give men erections. They work on that circulatory pathway. So the reason why the little blue pill works for some men and not others is that the men who are suffering from poor circulation, it tends to help. So if they're experiencing erectile dysfunction because of poor circulation and they take something like the little blue pill, that little blue pill improves circulation down there, they get an erection. If a man's experiencing erection problems because he's got low testosterone, then the little blue pill likely won't help as much. Now, talking of low testosterone, that's another downside to sitting too much. So you sit too much, your posture goes to shit, you become all like this. And science has proven that bad posture actually lowers your testosterone. And conversely, it's shown that having good posture increases your testosterone. So when I say to you that sitting really does negatively affect your masculinity, and over time it could completely destroy it, I'm really not joking. This is like a really big deal. It's a big deal for your health. It's a big deal for your masculinity. It's a big deal for your testosterone levels. It's a big deal for your sex life. So the question is, if you have to sit, if you drive to work, if you sit at work, if you like to watch television at home at night when you sat down, what can you do to minimize the negative effects of sitting? Well, the most obvious one is to sit less often. Now, you might say, well, I need to sit. I sit down at my desk job and it's simply not negotiable. I'm going to sit down at my desk job. And I sit down when I'm traveling to work because I drive my car or I get in a taxi or I get on the bus and I can't really stand up. Well, fair enough. But how about in the evenings? I've read studies that show that the average American watches something like 3 to 4 hours of TV a night. And most of those people watch that TV sat on a sofa. And when you sit on a sofa, you have lousy posture. You kind of just slump into it, At least when you sit on an office chair, you have the option of sitting up straight. On most sofas, it's hard to sit up straight because of the way they're designed. They just make you have shitty posture. You slouch on them, your backside comes forwards too much, your chest caves in. It's just not good. The most obvious thing, lay on the floor. Like, no joke, lay on the floor when you watch TV and watch what happens. Because what you'll find is that, let's say you lay on the floor on your right-hand side and your head's kind of propped up on your right hand, you'll find that after 3 or 4 or 5 minutes laying in that position, your neck feels a bit funny, so you naturally roll to the other side. And then maybe after you've been there for a while, you roll onto your front. And what it does is it gets you moving, which is good because most of us are too sedentary, and it gets you out of that sitting position. And even if laying on the floor with your hand like that can cause your neck to be a little bit tight, you move out of that position and move to another one. And it's one simple way to sit less. So when you're watching TV, when you're chilling out in the evenings, don't necessarily think you have to sit on a sofa. You can lay on the floor. Or you could lay on the sofa as well, but I like laying on the floor because then you end up rolling. And rolling is good for reasons that I'll explain in another video, but rolling really can make your body strong, and it's just a good way to move. Another thing, let's say that you are at work. So let's say you're in the same situation as me, where I do sometimes sit down at work when I'm working for maybe 6 or 8 hours a day at my computer, typing, answering emails, that kind of thing. What do I do to negate those negative effects of sitting down all day so that I don't have shitty posture and I don't cut off the circulation to my groin and I don't end up suffering from low testosterone because I've got shitty posture? What do? Well, the first thing is I make sure that I don't sit down for 3 hours in a row. You know, I would say that maximum every hour I get up and move. But usually every half hour I get up and move. Now the ways that I move, because I work in an office that's my own and there's nobody else in it, are perhaps ways that you won't feel comfortable doing if you work in an office with other people. Because what I do is I'll get up every half an hour or an hour and I'll spend 2 or 3 minutes rolling on the floor, rocking. I just wrote a blog post on rocking that people really liked. I'll put a link to it below this video so you can click on it, go to my blog and read that article on rocking. And I'll also crawl on the floor. You do 2 or 3 minutes of that, your body feels good as new. Now you do 2 or 3 minutes of that in your working day. So let's say 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day, you feel amazing. And it all adds up to only 12, 14, 16 minutes of movement. But you undo all that time you spent sitting. Now if you don't feel comfortable doing those movements on the floor because you work in an office environment and you're worried about what other people think, well, the first thing I would say to you is fuck what other people think, because I would still do it if I worked in an office environment. But maybe you work in an office environment where your boss simply wouldn't tolerate you doing that. If that's the case, at the very least, like, just get up and walk around the office, you know, or maybe, if you can, get up and walk, like, you know, around the building. Just spend a minute, even if it's only a minute. And if you make sure that when you're walking, you walk with the best posture possible, so look straight ahead and let your arms swing naturally as they should when you walk, then that's an even better reset for the kind of crap you've done to your body when you sat down. When you walk, I hate this, and it's mostly women who do it, but some men are doing it as well. Don't walk with your arms folded, because your posture, look at what it does to my posture. It automatically becomes shitty. So you've got to walk with good posture, let the arms swing, look straight ahead. Women do this a lot, men walk a lot with their hands in their pockets. Again, it's bad. Pushes your shoulders forwards, chest comes in, it's horrible. So this issue of sitting, like, I think it's one of the biggest, like, silent destroyers of health in the 21st century that people just aren't really aware of. Like, they get a bad back and they think they got to run to the chiropractor, or they have a knee problem, they think they need physio, or they've got neck problems and it's causing tension headaches and they think they need a painkiller. It's like, fuck, maybe you just need to address this issue that you sat down for too many hours every day, when some of them you don't need to be, some of them are unavoidable, but when you are sat down, you're not doing enough to undo the negatives. And to undo the negatives, you have to move. Walking is a simple way. I already told you that rolling, rocking and crawling is fantastic too. I told you about the blog post I've written that I'll put a link to below, all about rocking, and I will talk about rolling and crawling at a later date. But right now I want to show you one other thing that I like to do, and you could do this sat in the chair in your office, and I think you'd feel comfortable doing it. And if not, you could do it at home. And this one helps with the neck and the upper back and shoulder region, which a lot of people have issues with, and we just call it nodding because it's like nodding your head. It's what babies actually do to gain control of their heads when they're first born. So like within the first few months of life, you'll see babies nodding their head and they're getting control of that big giant watermelon. A lot of adults end up with really restricted head and neck movement and restricted movement in their shoulders and upper back because they lose that control of their head. This is what I mean. All you do is this, right? So you can look up and down like this. You let the eyes lead the movement, the head follows. So I'm looking down and I'm looking up. Preferably do it with your mouth shut, breathing deeply into your diaphragm. So we call it like belly breathing, because that makes you stronger and improves posture too. So you just look down and look up, and you could do like 10 repetitions, and then you can go this way. And the eyes are leading the movement, so I'm looking right and my head's following, and I'm looking to my left and the head's following. Then the other one you can do is this. And notice that I'm not lifting the shoulder up, I'm just moving my head through the range of motion that my head will move, and over time the range of motion will get better for you. And for a lot of people, you know, these tension headaches and these problems they have in their neck go when they start doing this kind of thing. So I could talk about this all day, but I won't. I'll go back to the original question. Does sitting ruin your masculinity? Well, it certainly can, and it certainly is for a lot of people. Why? Because it lengthens certain muscles and shortens others, and that causes joint problems, knee problems, hip problems, lower back problems particularly, shoulder, upper back problems, neck problems. How do you solve the problem of sitting? Well, if you can, you sit less often. You know, so if you're out on the bus or the train, you could choose to stand up. You don't have to sit on the bus or the train. When you're chilling out at home on an evening, maybe you're watching a movie or you're watching television, you don't need to, strictly speaking, sit on a sofa to do that. You can lay on the floor and roll around to change positions every few minutes. And when you do have to sit for long periods of time, let's say like yesterday, and I don't just mean at work, let's say like yesterday I had to drive to London, which is like, you know, a 4-hour car journey. I didn't do it all in one go. I stopped a couple of times, got out, stretched my legs, went for a walk. When you're in your day job, do the same thing. Get up, walk around the office, you know, just stretch your legs. Stretch in ways like this maybe that counteract what sitting does to you, which is this. And if you can, like I can, because I work in an office where I'm on my own, roll and rock and crawl on the floor, because that just, it resets your body. Like any aches and pains I get in my lower back because I've been sat with crap posture for an hour typing, disappear instantly within 30 seconds of me rolling, rocking and crawling on the floor. So sitting is really something to think about. It is kind of like a serious health problem that most people are not talking about, although some scientific studies are showing this connection between like the more time you spend sitting, the less likely you are to live a long life, all other things being equal. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel by hitting the subscribe button below. Then hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button, because that will give you notification when I release a new video. Also, hit the like button, and then in the comments section, leave a question, give me a feedback, or even tell me if you think I missed anything in this video, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you love this video, I'm sure you'll also really enjoy my special report, The Testosterone Apocalypse. In that report, you'll discover why the Western world is suffering from an epidemic of low testosterone. You'll discover how that epidemic of low testosterone is affecting you, and you'll also find out how that epidemic of low testosterone could literally end Western civilization as we know it. To get your hands on that report, The Testosterone Apocalypse, visit thenewalpha.com/test. That's thenewalpha.com/test.